How's it going? I'm IlaGolden and welcome to my blog. So today, as I mentioned in the end of the last one, I plan to talk a little bit about my multiverse. Having gone away and thought about it a little bit, I'm probably not going to be able to cover everything in this one, partly because I don't want all my vlogs continually getting longer and longer and longer, as the last couple seem to have. So this is going to be more of a brief overview, introduction type one, and then at various other times I will do specific, more detailed of the various aspects that make up my multiverse ones. So, with that said, what am I talking about when I refer to my multiverse? Well, that is a good question. When I'm talking about my multiverse, I'm talking about the layers of realms, planes and realities in which the majority of my stories are set. It's kind of the interlinking thing between them. In some stories it's referenced quite heavily, in some stories it's not touched upon at all, or touched upon a little bit because it's not the focus, not the main part of the story. I never overplay it, I don't think, but it's something that I'm always aware of when I'm writing my stories. It's kind of, in some ways you can look at it as these are the rules that I've set down for the fantasy world that I've created, and these are the aspects which will feature in most of my work because this is how I see these particular whatever they are, and it's about consistency. It's about the consistency between my books so that nothing contradicts itself within the lore that I've created. I think that's the most simple way of explaining it, or at least overviewing it. So how do I see my multiverse working? As I mentioned, I sort of use the word realms, reality and planes, and these are all words that do get used and referenced by characters when needed within the various things I've written. I'm still not totally sure how I differentiate between a realm and reality. There's a lot of overlapping in how those words tend to be used by my various characters. I think the idea is that a realm is kind of an individual world, whereas a reality is a different way that realm has been presented. The reality is the ultimate, whereas the realm is the specific. So if you're in a particular reality, you refer to that reality as a realm, and you refer to another reality as a different realm, but that's because it's a different reality. I don't know. I really need to work out how I differentiate those two things because I haven't actually gotten there yet. Whereas a plane I do know. A plane is the layers within a reality. So say you've got your realm as like the central world, like for example, say that's Earth. Then you've got the planes which go up from it and the planes which go down from it, the upper and the lower planes, and you can think of them sort of maybe being like, you know, the heavens and the hells, but not necessarily that clean cut, depending on what reality you're in, you know. As I said, I know that a plane is the layers up and the layers down from the centralized realm, and that's kind of the best way of explaining those terms. As I said, it's not a perfect explanation. I kind of know what I mean when I'm talking about it, and the characters talk about it with enough authority, I think, to get the basic understanding across. as and when they need to use it. So for now, think of realm and realities as kind of being sort of interchangeable, and planes being the up and down within a reality, or within a group of realms, however you want to look at it. I think, yeah, the planes are the up and downs within the reality, and the realm's kind of the central reality within that group. Yeah, we'll go with that. That sounds good. And I think that's kind of my main way of thinking about it. Anyway, even if I'm not particularly good at explaining it. So, how is my multiverse structured? Because obviously lots of different people have different ways of structuring their multiverses and stuff. So the way I sort of see the multiverse working is that every realm, every reality is connected to every other reality by a 3-degree of separation kind of situation. But on a more sort of immediate level, they've got a primary group and then a secondary group. So say this is our reality. It'd be connected in a loop to several other realities as its primary, and then connected in another loop to however many other realities as a secondary loop. So the primary loop is a loop which it's most closely connected to, so shares a lot more in common with, and it's only like smaller details which are different. And then the secondary loop, it shares some details with, but there are more immediate differences. And then obviously as it's connected to these and they're connected to others, and everything sort of filters out from there. The reason I sort of very much think of it like this is the main group of realities that I have worked with on more than one story, or rather the group of realities that I've worked with on more than one story, are often referred to as the Circle of Six, or to give it its full original title, the Circle of Six Realities in which the Silconian Macalians exist. And then its new title, which is the Circle of Six Disconnected Realities. And yeah, so that's that group's primary circle, is this group which becomes known as Disconnected, or the Circle of Six. So I think because I had that idea very much in mind, that is how the structure of the multiverse then formed within my mind in order to create this wider scope of the multiverse. And the other thing that I sort of knew is that the multiverse itself is the second attempt. So there is a creation story. There are gods. There are gods within my theos. As part of that as part of that creation story, part of that the greater creation of this multiverse, is that originally it was just a universe. It was just a singular reality, singular plane of existence, and as a result of a war which occurred between the mistresses and the Regina, and don't worry, they will have a fuck of their own. They require one. But as a result of the war that occurs between them, pretty much all of that original universe is destroyed, and what's left of it is used to form the basis for what would become the multiverse. And this basis, the original plane, as it quite often gets referred to as, or more specifically, Gaia, G-I-Y-A, rather than any other spelling, by the way. Gaia is kind of like the thread that links all the realms and planes together. So if you want to cross realms, One of the ways you can do it is by finding that particular reality or that particular realm or that particular plane's connection to Gaia, and then going through Gaia until you find the bit of Gaia that connects to where you want to go. As I said, it's one of the ways. There are other ways that you can cross realms and cross realities, but one of the major ways is Gaia. And Gaia, for me, is an exciting place for me to sort of write about and to include when I do include it in my stories, because it's such a varied plane. It's such a varied place of existence, and it's got, you know, so much lore and so much history and so much potential to it, because it is part of this original universe, and it's quite a large fragment, you know, because what was originally created was, you know, probably a lot bigger than even I think about sometimes. So yeah, I'm hoping I'm doing a good job at explaining this. But again, I think Gaia in and of itself deserves, you know, coming back to it at a later point, and more discussion. And I want to sort of try to cover as much as possible right now. And if I get stuck on talking about Gaia, that's not going to happen. She says. So some other basics that probably good to go into at this point is, as I mentioned before, the Circle of Six are known as the disconnected realities. The disconnection is an event that happens within the chronological history of these realities, and it's a simultaneous event in all realities, and it takes place across 3 different parts. And I've written one version of that is a complete book series, and it's the first part of that series is one of the books that I do have published, but because I published it a number of years ago, it does need to go back and be reworked and refined, and I do plan on doing that eventually, and eventually releasing the other parts as well. But these things take time, as they do. But yeah, so the disconnection happens, and in the wake of the disconnection happening, you get the formation of the Balance Council. And the Balance Council, their main job is to protect the laws between realities. So it's to stop somebody going into a reality that is less developed than theirs, and using the power that they have in order to, you know, take over or disrupt the natural state of being of that reality, or, you know, whatever. And they're primarily set up to protect the disconnected, because they are no longer aware, because of the events that happen, they are no longer aware of the existence of the other realities, even within their own circle anymore, their own primary circle anymore. So the primary function is to stop the reasons why that they've become disconnected from being violated. That it's to protect them. As things sort of developed and sort of went on, they basically became sort of multiverse police force, as it were. So they do expand their reach, and they do start creating ridiculous laws and rules and regulations and yada yada yada, which does mean that they do end up with a little bit of resistance. So although they're sort of necessary, with archaic rules, and you do get factions within the multiverse. One who basically thinks that, you know, the Balance Council needs to be, and the balancers and the trackers who work for the council should be completely eradicated, and everything should be like taken back to basics, and everything should be started again. And then you get another faction who are kind of more, well, yeah, you could do that, but we would end up in, you know, anarchy and chaos, or we could try to change the system that's there and try to update the rules and update everything so that it works better within the society we have now. So you've got that going on, and as I said, that's a basic overview of that. And then I think the other thing I should cover is the idea of the Senkai. Senkai, which they are Etin words. Etin is the language that I've created for my fantasy multiverse, or the primary language that I've created for my fantasy multiverse. There are hints that there are other languages there, but that's kind of the primary one that I created. And again, that deserves its own vlog, so I'm not going to go too much into that now. But anyway, Senkai translates out to otherworldly, identical incarnation, and it's basically the word used to describe another reality version of yourself. So, say there's you, and then there's you from another reality. You are their Senkai, and they are your Senkai. And this works even if they're a different gender to you, or a different breed to you, or a different species to you, or, you know, whatever. It still works as long as there is something about the two of you that clearly means that you are the same person, but just an alternate version of that person, and they are your Senkai. I try not to overuse Senkais unless the story calls for it. Partly because, you know, it can get confusing, a little bit confusing, and partly because it's not always necessary within a story for it to occur. You know, I am aware of who is who's Senkai, but the reader doesn't always need to be aware of that. The reader doesn't always need to know that detail, unless it is important to the story, or important to the group of stories, or whatever. Senkai, as I mentioned before, don't necessarily have to be the same gender as you, as long as they are an identical incarnation of you in every other way. They also don't have to have had the same history as you, they don't have to have had the same name as you. In fact, quite often Senkais don't share a name. Somehow they've come into being identical to you, apart from maybe the gender or the breed. But other than that, you know, they don't have to share that much in common with you at all, although the closer they are to your primary reality, the more likely they are to share a number of things in common with you, although again, that's not 100% necessary. And I can't think what else to say on this point. I think I've covered it quite well. I hope I've covered it quite well. So yeah, this has been a very, very basic overview, a very basic introduction to the Multiverse and some of the ideas surrounding it. As I said, there is a lot more to it, but I think trying to cover everything in a single vlog is just going to be ridiculous. So this is more of a basic introduction to some of the basic ideas and concepts that I feel like the most important things for you guys to know now. And in future vlogs I will be breaking down various things. As I've already mentioned the mistresses, I've already mentioned Etin. I definitely want to revisit Gaia and say a bit more about Gaia and more specific things that I've actually done in terms of utilising Gaia. And yeah, there are definitely lots of things that still need to be covered. So I think for the next vlog, I would actually like to talk about Etin. We've done a brief overview of the Multiverse. Now let's introduce you to the primary language I have created for said Multiverse. I think Etin would be a good subject to tackle next, because it's one I absolutely love talking about when I can. Mostly because I like getting the chance to use Etten, and I don't get the chance to use Etten as much as I would like. Or at least not Etten in its, the purest form of Etten. I sometimes use some of the hybrid forms of it, or the altered versions of it, but I don't very often get to utilise Etten as much as I would like, and I do like talking about Etten. I do like using it when I can, and I think something you guys might be a little bit interested in. I hope. So yeah, with that said, next episode is going to be on Etten. I hope to see you there, but for now, see ya!